We're going to build a 3-foot plenum with a 1/2-inch flange bend at the bottom to screw to the top of the furnace. And we're going to build it, it's going to have a top cap. The plenum size is 13.5 by 21 inches. And we're making it with a duct beater and a button lock machine. The button lock seam takes 1 1/4 inch of material for the female side, and the male side's a 1/2 inch. So we're going to build the 13.5 inch side, and what we got to do is, since we got to add a 1/2 inch to each side, we got to add 1 inch. So we're at 14.5. So we're going to cut 2 pieces 14.5 by 36. So now what we need to do is do the long sides of this, so it'll be 21. The female side, each joint is 1 1/4 inch, each seam. So what we need to do is add 2.5 inches to the 21 inches. So it's going to be 23.5, 23.5. Now we have our four pieces. We got 2 of them, 23.5. and 2 of them 14.5. We have to mark a 1/2 inch at the top and a 1/2 inch at the bottom. The 1/2 inch at the bottom allows for a flange for us to screw to the top of the furnace, and the 1/2 inch at the top allows for the cap to fit on. Okay, now we set the scribe at 1 1/4 inch to allow for that female button lock seam. Okay, now we have to notch it about a 15-degree angle. Do that to all 4 corners. Now we got both pieces are notched. They're ready to be ran through the duct beater and the tin knocker button lock machine. We're going to use the tin knocker 60-inch 16-gauge duct beater to put the bead on our for the reinforcement on our ductwork. Now when you do this, you always start at one side, because per Spactor requirements it's 6 inches and then every 12 inches on center. So your lines all line up. You want to start all at one side. Okay, we're going to put the female seam using the tin knocker 20-gauge button lock machine to make the seam on both sides of our plenum. Okay, now we're going to bend the 1/2 inch flange that fits on the top of the furnace. Okay, now we have it beaded, our button lock seam, and our 1/2 inch flange. So now we'll build the other 2 sides. Okay, the male side of the button lock seam is a 1/2 inch. So with this one here, we got to do a 1/2 at the top for the flange on the furnace and a 1/2 inch for the cap. And now we got to mark a 1/2 inch on the side. So now we're going to go all the way around this, both pieces, and scribe it with a 1/2 inch. Okay, now we notch it at a little bit of an angle, approximately 15 degrees, notch all 4 corners on both pieces. When we run it through the duct beater, you use one side or the other for your guide to run it through, and it runs it through square, and also it gives you your proper spacing for the Spactor requirements, which is 6 inches, then every foot on center after that. When we ran it through the button lock machine, every so often here it put a dimple on there. What the dimple does, it holds this flange into the female button lock seam. So it goes in there and it snaps into place. Okay, we got to bend this 1/2 inch up for our flange for the top of our furnace, but we're running into a little problem. We got a drop down for one side, but the other side we can't get it to fit in, so we have to take a pair of hand seamers just to make it flat so it fits in. Otherwise you smash it and distort it. So we bend that up at a 90. Then when we're done, we've got that at a 90. Then we take our hand seamers and bend it back. So now we're ready to assemble. When you're putting this, start at one side, get it started. Hold the other side up in the air a little bit, and then kind of tap it in the seam as it goes. Okay, now we're going to build the top of the plenum, and I put a flange on it that we can screw down to. The plenum we built was 13.5 inches by 21 inches. And for the cap to fit inside of it correctly, you have to subtract 1/4 of an inch off of each dimension. So it's 13.25 by 20 3/4 is the size we want it when it's all done. And then we add, for our seam, we add 1 inch on one side, 1 inch on the other. So we have to add 2 inches to each one of them measurements. So it's going to be 15.25 by 22 3/4. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over here and get our cut size at 15.25. Now our other measurement is 22 3/4. Scribe the inch all the way around it. And I marked this inch on both sides. Where the 1 inch lines meet, you just cut it straight across, so that'd be a 45-degree angle all the way across. Do that to all 4 corners. Now we're ready to cross break it and bend our flange on the top. Okay, now we need to bend a 1/2 inch flange, just a little under a 1/2 inch on this, all the way around this. And this, you mark another line and bend it on the break, or we can use the 10-knocker cleat bender. I don't have to mark anything, and it's real accurate to be able to put that just under a 1/2 inch flange on this. It leaves it open just a little bit so it doesn't smash it over and you have to spread it apart later during assembly. So we do all 4 sides with this 1/2 inch. Now what we need to do is bend all these up at a 90 so our flange is going outward on this cap. Now, this is the top of the plenum with the flange going up. This is what we ended up with, all 4 sides with the seam all the way around for the plenum to fit into. Now we're going to put the top on the plenum. I start with one side. Take and tap that over. This last side, sometimes where it's cross broke, it kind of goes in a little, so you might have to take a screwdriver and kind of get it lined up. Okay, your plenum top's on. You should put a couple screws in it for support to keep it from popping off, but you're pretty much done. A 36-inch plenum, it really only is 35.5 because we used a 1/2 inch flange to go out to screw to on the top of the furnace. But this is a 4-sided plenum with a Pittsburgh seam on each end. And what we make this, a lot of times people make a 4-sided plenum because they can make it in the shop, take it out on the job, and they can have it all broke down so it isn't carrying out this big piece in a truck and damaging it. So what we have is that, and we have the the plenum top with a 1/2 inch flange on it so we can, for assembly. And this is made with the 1/2 inch flange, so all you have to do is run screws around the furnace to connect it to the furnace.